to the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrian Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. We're live streamed every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. This week, I have Tricia Dietrich joining me to discuss different perspectives on energy healing, what it means to her, how she got started working with it, and how it shows up in her practices with clients and students. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. This is the second episode of the Energetic Psyche, a weekly podcast hosted by yours truly, Dr. Adrian Campbell, where we talk about real life, challenge assumptions, and explore different ways of being in the world. Joining me tonight is Tricia Dietrich to talk a little bit about energy healing, what it means to be us, or well, that too probably, but what energy healing means to us, how we started working with it, and how we use it in our practices with individual clients and students. So just a little bit about Tricia. Tricia is the creatrix of Sacred Source Studios, a space that utilizes ritual, creativity, and movement to help people connect to their intuition, discover the language of their soul, and live legendary lives. Tricia is a retired health professional with a master's degree in health sciences from the University of Missouri. She's also a certified intentional creativity teacher and coach, a Usui Reiki Master, Theta healer, and priestess in the Temple of Witchcraft. Tricia incorporates all of her skills into her online courses, coaching programs, and energy work sessions. Tricia's art, by the way, she's an amazing artist. Tricia's art and offerings have helped hundreds of people worldwide to get out of their own way and embody their unique blueprint. Many of her clients come to Tricia when their life is turned upside down and the traditional methods of healing aren't working. She uses non-traditional methods that blend energy work and creativity to facilitate lasting transformation for her clients. And when she's not working, you can find Tricia on her deck drinking a glass of dry red wine with her handsome hubby and the hummingbirds. At night, she can be found dancing in the woods, which I've joined her. So fun. You should check out those offerings. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. Dancing in the woods under the moonlight with her sisters. So, Tricia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I so am happy to have you here, and I so appreciate your time. Like, absolutely.
I'm just honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let's just jump right in. You ready? Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I kind of wanted to bring forward, and I'll just preface this with also saying that on this podcast, I plan on having a few different types of energy healers or people that work with energy healing, because it is such a varied field. And I think there's a lot of things that people don't know about it or don't understand about it. And all of us that work with it in such different ways because, well, I'll get into my thoughts on that in a minute. But basically, we work with it in so many different ways that I want to provide an opportunity for people to see it from multiple perspectives and to also learn how to ask certain questions when they want to work with a practitioner and just be a little bit more informed on their energy healing journey. So, yeah. All right. So, energy healing, what is it to you?
Okay, so to me, it's really hard to encapsulate and come up with an explanation of what energy healing is, because I feel like energy is a part of everything in our life. So energy healing is accessing different ways of healing to get out of, a lot of it's about getting out of our own way. I feel like, and then the healers come to us who have the skills and the know-how to, like we get the good healers that come to us with the skills. And when I say good healers, I mean all healers, like hip surgeons. Hip surgeons came into my life and helped heal me in a way that nobody else could have. Nobody. But I feel like the energy behind that and what I was wanting to manifest is what helped call that surgeon into my life. So energy is just in everything. It is in and just thinking about your day and how you're and the time and how you're going to pick your kid up from school and what time you're going to leave. You're doing manifestation work. That's energy work. And you arriving there on time, picking them up, that's you manifesting your life right there. So energy healing is just learning how to look at something that might feel hard. Usually when we need to heal, we're not completely comfortable. So we end up getting into something that stops us. It's turbulent and rugged, and it's blocked us. And then trying to figure out and look at something from a different perspective to move past that. And I think we talked about this last night. And that's what's coming to me today. So for me, it's hard to narrow down and encapsulate really what energy healing is. My energy healing came to me, and when it came to me, before that, I was a medical professional. There's a lot of energy healing in the medical professions, in the hospitals.
Well, and that's one of the things that like I really loved about our conversation, getting ready for the podcast, was like talking about our two definitions and how different and yet similar they were at the same time. Because for you, it very much was that like being human is energy. Everything is energy, right? Like everything in life is energy. And so no matter what kind of healing you're getting, I mean, technically it's energy healing in some way, shape, or form. And I think one of the things that came up in conversation was that, like you mentioned, whenever you're picking your kid up or doing whatever daily tasks, you have an intention, you have an expectation, you're putting that energy out into the world. So you're manifesting, right? And you're bringing that reality to you. And so when you work with like a hip surgeon, his intentions matter. The way that he moves into the surgery that he is going to do on you matters. And all of that contributes to the energy healing. And I loved your description because it's so full and so big. And I think because I teach at such a basic beginner's level, well, not basic, but like beginner's level, I often give like, very short, succinct definitions. But everything you're saying is like absolutely right. And so I cut you off a little bit because
that's okay.
Is awesome. But before we get there, I just also wanted to add that like super simple and succinct definition too, because it is this huge, big picture, but for some of us, sometimes that's a little bit overwhelming. And we want to just be able to be like, yeah, but like, what is it? Right? And then it's like, it's both and all. So the way that I describe energy healing is if we imagine that energy is flowing throughout our bodies all of the time, right? I mean, essentially we're made up of atoms and molecules held together by different frequencies. And we have these beautiful energy flows going through our bodies all the time from birth. When we're born, they're beautiful, they're clear. Where the energy flows is where the healing goes. And we're designed to actually be able to heal ourselves. And so if you think about those currents of energy as riverbeds, over time, different things happen to us, whether it be an emotional injury, mental injury, or physical injury. And those can create blockages in those pathways. So with the river analogy, it's a rock, a pebble, a boulder, right? Depending on how big it is. And it gets in the way of that river being able to flow the way it was designed to flow. And so what energy healing does from my perspective is go in and remove the boulders, remove the rocks. It doesn't actually heal you. It creates the conditions for healing so that you can heal yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way that I've always looked at it. Like I said, very, right? And so when we talked about it the other day, I was like, oh God, but you're so right. Because it does encompass like all the things.
Everything. It's in our food. The medicine that we take has a different energetic frequency. How that medicine is made matters. Where that medicine came from, the source of it. It's all going to have a different effect on our body depending on all of those things.
Right. Like when they talk about food being medicine, It's not just because a specific
especially.
type of food is healthy for you, but like, especially when you're eating animals, but plants as well. Where were they raised? Were they happy chickens or were they sad chickens, right? Because all of that energy goes into it. Were the people caring for them? Did they have positive intentions and like good vibes to, you know, sound like the full hippie I'm being right now? Yeah. You know, or were they like angry and corporate driven and, you know, sad? I don't want those chickens.
They taste different. They're not as good.
And it's true. It's so true. Italian eggs are so much better, is all I'm going to say. I had eggs in Italy. They were the best eggs I think I've ever had in my whole life. But it mattered. And that's why, like, when I teach Reiki classes, I teach people, they're like, well, how can I use Reiki more often? And I'm like, Reiki your water in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, send energy healing into your water. And if we use your definition, right, you're literally taking intention through energy into this water to create a more positive frequency vibe, to heal your body.
And I encourage everyone to just experiment with this because some of it, I did not come from a bunch of witches and bonfire, you know, powwows. I grew up in the Midwest in a very strictly Catholic farming community. You know, I didn't have this background. And then before I worked in health sciences, I worked in research for the government. So I have a scientific background. And so if you are, I encourage people to just experiment and see what happens for them with some curiosity, because that's what I do with a lot of this stuff. I just think, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. Okay, well, let's see if this has an effect. And then if I'm serious about seeing what the results are, I know what works for me and what doesn't, right? Like, and everyone is so individual. Something that works really well for one person might not work the same for another. But I think that if we can take our own initiatives on seeing what works the best for us, especially with energy work, because it's so subtle. And I don't think that in this country we're used to subtlety, and I don't know if we're going there. I feel like things are getting more extreme, but there is the subtleness of things is where the real healing happens.
Two things off of what you said. I think you're absolutely right that different things work for different people. And what I've found is that even at different times in your life, different things are going to work for you.
Yes.
And that's conversations that we've had before about the different clients that we work with, is that I often work with people towards the beginning of their journey. And I feel like people that are more further along would benefit more from working with you. Right.
Yeah. I've worked with some people and I have to really go back and I can meet people much easier when they have some of what you've taught them behind them. And I can do what I'm doing maybe is more advanced. It wasn't ever meant to be that way, but we learn differently.
Well, I think who we are as people is a big part of that too. Like, I think when you work in this area, right? I try to avoid the term healer because I don't want people, I don't want people giving their power to me. I don't want them thinking that they're coming to me and I'm going to heal them. So I kind of try to avoid that. So I just say people that work in this area. And so I think that our own journey plays into the work that we do and what we provide so much that it's incredible. And unless you're going to put together some cookie cutter practice, you can't avoid it. And I am the type of person that has a foot in both worlds, right? I'm a military veteran. I worked in tech and semiconductors, and I still am in contact with all these people, and I still work in military veteran space as well as this. So for me, that's my space, right?
Yeah.
Where I think I do well or do best at this moment anyway.
Uh-huh.
But for me on my own healing journey, I wouldn't go to someone like me. I would go to someone like you because I've been doing this stuff now for 10 years. No. Oh my God, it's been longer. It's been like 12. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. So I've been in this stuff for like 12 years now, right? So I want somebody that's going to help me progress past where I'm at. I don't need to keep rehashing, the beginning stuff. Granted, I did almost do a level 1-2 class again recently. Just to kind of get in touch with my roots, go back to my original
to see also where the people are at when they're coming in. So I can see where that would be beneficial.
Yeah,
I
just
not retaking it because of that too.
And then, sorry, was there something else I wanted to address another thing you talked about?
I was going to say, because I do think that at different points where I love working with people who are already doing this work. And I didn't really ever have a structuralized way of doing any of this. It happened overnight and it was really fucking horrible, like awful. I wouldn't want that for anyone. I just automatically had a backstage pass to the universe. And
I had
incredibly psychic people around me. I had a spiritual awakening and I was so sick. I was not functional and I was losing everything in my life. Yeah. And the people that were around me when medicine started failing, I had to wait for medicine to catch up with what I needed. So I feel like my healing journey was part me learning how to call in what I needed and call in those healers. And there's so many people like me out there that are doing that. I feel like their desperation is actually calling in the technology and the medicine that people need. They have a really vital role and they probably don't even realize it because the surface of their life is just falling apart. So there was no structure, and I was really grateful to have some incredibly caring people around me that were also incredibly psychic that kind of knew. But I'm just now coming up with words to describe what I've been able to do for the last decade. And so when someone comes to me that has never had any energy work, I have to be really careful that I don't overload them with things. But then if someone like you comes to me who has a practice, they're used to just dealing with that amount of energy in their body, and we can just go to a lot of different places, and it's a lot of fun. But it's learning how to meet those people where they are is
I think a big
journey of I call myself a guide.
I love that term. Yeah.
And the reason why I call myself that is because I never liked the word healer. It was attracting people that were avoiding healing themselves, and they wanted me to, they were bypassing the nitty-gritty parts of their healing journey. But I didn't know what else to call me. I didn't have words. So I just asked my soul, well, what do you want to be called for this work? Because this is, and they said a channel and a guide. And I said, okay, we'll see how that works in the world. We'll see how that's received. And I think that people that are where you are will understand that, but people that have never had any energy work are going to look at that thinking, no.
And that's where they are. I mean, when I first got into this, I did so much research on certifications and credentialing and background. Well, this organization, how long have they been around, and how do I know they're official and I'm not throwing my money away? Because that's where I was at. And that was my background, and that's what I needed, Yeah. But yeah, it just depends. And I think a big part too of what you're talking about is the more we do this kind of work, I think the more boundaries we've set and the more self-aware we are, the easier it is to ask for what we need or to say no to what we don't want. Right?
I think that's just nitty-gritty boundary work.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing is like any kind of like healing work you go in to do, whether it's therapy, working with a guide, a coach, whatever, you know, if you're at the very beginning of your journey and you're from Western society, and God forbid you have any kind of trauma from your developmental stages in life or just life, you probably suck at boundary setting because, you know, that's a thing. I mean, there's not a million reels about it on Instagram for no reason. And so that's what it is. And I mean, it's even for myself, for sure. I can say that's a big part.
Too.
Like if I was just, you know, lay down on your table, I could easily be like, oh, hey, would you mind turning the lights down a little bit lower? They bother my eyes. Or, you know, would you mind not wearing X? Not that you do this, but you know, would you mind not wearing the patchouli oil because that bothers my senses, you know, or whatever. Whereas when I first got my first Reiki session, I wouldn't even close my eyes. I was so freaked out. Really? And she was like, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, what do I do? She's like, lay on the table. I'm like, so I just like lay there. She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. She's like, do you want to bolster? I'm like, I guess. I'm like, I'm not getting a massage, right? she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So I just like lay here. She's like, yeah. Like, do I have to close my eyes? She was like, no. So where I sit now, this is hilarious to me, right? Because I was like totally not, I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. And she let me keep my eyes open the whole time, talk to me the whole time, right? Which is something I offer, especially if I'm working with anyone that has any kind of high levels of anxiety, PTSD, etc. Like we'll chat the whole session. I don't care, you know, whatever it is that you need to make you feel comfortable. Whereas like I said, now, like when we work together, I'm just like, cool. What do you want to do? Yeah. You know, trust your judgment. I'm down.
It takes a while to get to that.
Yeah. And it's because I think I feel a lot more secure in my, just self-empowered in my healing compared to where I was, you know, all those years ago, 12 years ago.
I think trust is really important as well. I mean, it's just absolutely required. And with some people, my first session, I do a lot of talking because I feel like it's needed. This is a field that the science is just now catching up with it. And the ironic thing about it is it's probably, it has ties to some of the oldest healing traditions in humanity, but it's been dismissed because of just science, which is somewhat of a new field compared to, like, you look at acupuncture, you look at Tantra, and Ayurveda all deal with energy work. They look at the body from a framework of its energy profiles, and this was all thrown out. So
and it's been around for, you know, just thousands of years.
But I think trust, I mean, I'm not able to even do energy work on people if they don't fully trust me. I'll just stop and have a conversation with them. And you can feel, but I think that is a good guide or channel will be able to feel the restriction that's being caused because that person isn't fully trusting. And you don't want them to just further dissociate while you're on the table. You've got to stop and just, you know, talk, let their conscious mind know what you're doing.
Well, because I think we're both very similarly aligned in that we do the work we do to empower people.
Yes.
Not to take their power away. And so if someone's uncomfortable and you're like, you know what, it'll be fine. Just lay on the table. Just close your eyes and go to your happy place.
And sometimes that would do that. I think all my years of working in the medical field, I was an echocardiographer. So I like to tell people that in my life, I have witnessed over 1 million individual heartbeats. It's kind of cool. But when you walk into those patients' rooms, this is just a skill that you learn. Is you have to what Malcolm Gladwell calls thin slicing. You get enough experience with a personality. You can read it within a split second, and sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. That's what his whole book. He's written books about that, but something kicks in and you know how to handle some people. So some people would feel more comfortable with them saying, just get on the table, close your eyes, and just and other people would be mortified, and you would never be able to get anywhere with them.
And that's why it's so awesome that there's so many different types of us.
Yes.
And I always am like, there's no competition. And if you move into a new area, get to know all the energy healers in your area.
Yeah.
Talk to them about the way they do work, what they do, because people are going to find who they're meant to be with. And if someone comes to work with you and you're like, oh, this isn't a great fit, if you've connected with the other energy healers, you have a whole bunch of people you can refer them out to, so they still get help, but they're with the right people for them or whatever.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, and this isn't really taught in healing. Like if you go to the doctor's office, you're not taught that is a sacred relationship. Right. What more of a sacred relationship could you have with someone who is helping you heal your own body?
Right? Like you're literally giving them access to your physical form on this earth.
Yes, the conversations you have in that office are sacred, and how you are, I want to say held. I know in a doctor's office you wouldn't think of that, but honestly, that facility is holding something in you that is needing to change. And how you are received, how your information received matters. And I want to really empower people that when you know who your healer is, there's a spark. I say healer. I
know, but we know
who your person is, like who your person is, right? It's a sacred relationship. And a lot of times with energy work, you know it, but you don't know why. Like you know it, but you don't know why you need to go to that person, but that person is who you need to go to. And honestly, that intuition is what needs to be followed more so than all their tiles on their walls and stuff, because there's something deep within you that needs something. And odds are that person that's going to help you needs it too. You're there to also deepen their skills and maybe challenge them, but you're both in that room because you're both growing in a way that you wouldn't have if you had not gone to them.
Well, yeah. I mean, so in therapy, they talk about it as transference and countertransference. It's that unconscious energetic shift that goes back and forth. And that's why in Jungian psychology, so even though my degree is in clinical and I'm not a therapist, right? We do study a lot about this because we're still trained to work with people, just not in a therapeutic setting, or as a therapist, I should say. And one of the things that they really impress upon us is that anytime you move into relationship with another human being or even an animal, I'm going to throw that out there too. When you move into relationship, it's an opportunity for healing for both parties, right? And so in a lot of the work, especially somatic work, and bringing somatic work into all the work that you do, one of the very first things is just paying attention to your own physical and somatic responses to the other person. And that's, focusing on the somatic experience, but mental, emotional, all of that. And kind of like I was talking about a minute ago, when it comes to like knowing somebody's not right for you and finding them a different practitioner, is if they walk in or you're on the phone and you start getting the like, because it happens. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person or you're a bad person or whatever, but some people are just not meant to work together, and like, that's okay. However, the universe decides to tell you, just listen. So like it's being aware of how you are feeling. And so mentally, physically, emotionally, somatically, I mean, all of those things, so that you can respond. And even if it's a great relationship and you're working together, being able to pay attention to those parts of your experience make you such a stronger practitioner, whether it's as a doctor, a therapist, a coach, an energy healer, a somatic practitioner, a yoga instructor, like whatever it is, because it's like you said, like it is this sacred relationship. Anytime we enter into something like that with another human being or animal, and they're willing to let us into that space,
Yeah, there's so much vulnerability, and it has to be valued and respected. There's a lot of transactional relationships in this world, and I've definitely been in front of other people where I knew that relationship is transactional. They talk to me for 7 minutes and then tell me, this was in the medical world, and they would tell me to take some medicine that's very that I knew wasn't going to help me. And then that was that. They talked to me for about 7 minutes, give me a prescription, and then leave, and ask the same questions, even though it didn't have anything to do with my problems.
I bet that made you feel really heard and understood.
I just felt really skeptical, but also it made me really question my own body. And it was the push that I needed to start standing up for myself and make boundaries around what I was and what was not going to do with my body. Because before that had happened, I was just taught to push through it, and I could, right? I had the energy, and I was really resilient and strong and active, but that all got taken away from me. And I think that it was a big blessing, because I had to really stop and listen to what was truly right for me, and then learn and train myself. And this is still probably a lifelong thing to know that I have the right to leave, that I have the right to voice what I need, even though that other person has all these initials or all these, if they're not right, there's something in me. I'll leave and I'll be a little angry, but I had to discern where that anger was coming from. What am I angry about? Am I angry because they're calling me out on what I need to heal, and I'm blaming them? Or am I angry because I am getting further away from myself, and being more present and doing what they're telling me to do is actually taking me further away from who I am. I'm having to dissociate to a certain level in order to do this thing that they're having me do.
Right. And again, that's a really good example of high levels of self-awareness, firm boundaries. And I love that you shared that when it happens, you remove yourself from the situation and then reflect, right?
Yeah, you have to.
You don't have to, like, I think sometimes we're taught, like, just sit there, let it happen. You can think about it after, or, whatever. But no, like, if it feels really wrong, like, get out and then process. And if you need to apologize or do something later, fine. But take care of yourself first. I think that's most important.
Yeah, and that time to just kind of chew on stuff. I've also been in situations just like, what is going on?
Right, exactly.
I'm so, like so many things floating around. You're just, okay, I'm gonna be here and then figure this shit out when I get home. This is nuts though, like.
And sometimes it takes a couple days, and that's okay too.
And that's all what I feel, that it all is energy work.
Yeah, exactly.
What I want to really teach people is how to do that. I do it through creativity. I do it through drawing and painting, because that's how I came to it.
So let's talk about that first, because I definitely want to know how you use it, right? Because that's another thing that we use energy healing in our space is so different. So I definitely want to talk about that. But I also want to talk about, like, how you got into this, the type of training you did, like, because again, I invited you here because I know how different we are in this, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's so freaking fantastic. And so tell me a little bit, because you also do theta healing, is that right? Not just
I haven't done it. I'm certified to do it, and I do it on myself. I don't do it actively in my practice, but I can.
So tell us about the different types of energy healing, structured, specific, that you do, and kind of how you came into it.
Okay. Well, I feel like I need to tell you the story of how I came into it to explain the structures of my training. Is that okay?
You're here for that reason.
I I came into it, like I said, in a healing crisis, and I was 31, 32 years old. I was getting out of a really abusive relationship. I needed help out of it. I was in a really abusive situation at my work. Um, and then so I moved back home with my parents. I'm not someone who wants to live with mom and dad till this just really was pretty devastating for me. And I think it took some adjustment for them too, like she's moving back in and she's in her 30s. But it was really great to have that support. And at the same time, I just saw my life crumbling in the way of my body falling apart. I had my second hip surgery. I had my first hip surgery from a very transactional relationship with the hip surgeon. And they didn't do enough to repair the tears in my hips. And then I found another hip surgeon just out of the blue, which was great, who I got another hip surgery. And after that second hip surgery, it was a 4.5-month recovery, but it took me about 10 months to where I was just functional to be able to go work. And by going and working, I mean getting up and going to work, going home, immediately taking painkillers, and then being laid up for the rest of the night. That's how functional it was. And I'm glad that my parents were cooking for me and able to clean, and because I just really wouldn't have been able to do that. During that time, a lot of autoimmune issues cropped up, but this was in 2010 or 2011, and I lived in the middle of the country. So there was no integrative medicine at that time, none. I went to 3 rheumatologists, and they told me 3 different things. And I had in my blood work, it looked like I had lupus. Nobody gave me the diagnosis. They were kind of going, but there wasn't enough for the doctors to really diagnose me with anything. The weird thing was I wasn't sick enough. Like their blood work and all their markers, it didn't make any sense. This was devastating for me because I had no idea what was going on, or even worse, when it was ever going to stop. Like,
yeah, and I'm sure terrifying.
It was, and I would go, like I'd go grocery shopping and it would lay me out for 3 days. And I just thought, okay, well, am I just going to end up living with my parents for the rest of my life? Is this my life? Mm-hmm. I need to make the best of it if it is. But I got better. I lost half my hair. My hair is falling out, and it still hasn't all grown back, but that's okay. I got so much more back. It's okay that I only have half the hair that I had. But nothing was helping. So they were giving me medicine, and instead I was functional, but then I was getting sick with all sorts of other strange things. I was in the hospital with a rota. I was never sick before this. And so I just started to get off of all the medications that they were giving me, because they weren't working. I was just consistently sick with other things. And then I started to really look at what I was eating, and then I changed my diet. And then I knew that it was only a matter of time till I was going to need another hip surgery. And that happened. That moment happened. I was in a yoga class and I was doing a power pose, and I heard a clunk and then pain, and I knew that I was done and I was going to need another hip surgery. So, and I did. I went to a third hip surgery, but I thought, well, I've changed so many things. This is going to end up better. I'm going to be back on my feet in 4.5 months. And I wasn't. The same thing happened where right when everyone was starting to go back to work and get back into their lives, my autoimmune symptoms flared up, and I took a deep dive, and I was in. It was really painful. Just being alive was literally, excruciatingly painful. So I was on a lot of anti-inflammatories and pain medication. And during this time, I had reunited with some people that I knew from my childhood. And one of them was a Reiki Master. And I did a Reiki session with her, really intense Reiki session. So nothing happened lightly with me. Like there was, what happened in that one? We found an entity that had been, like this, just weird things that would probably happen to people be able to see these things after and talk about things in circles, not just new energy work people, right? But I was glad that I could talk to her. I'd seen the face of something kind of scary that looked like the poltergeist guy that, like in the door, he says, "Let me in,"
Yeah.
I saw that kind of face in my early 20s when I would close my eyes at night. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
I would just see it and I would just see it. Well, it really came in, but it couldn't get in the room. And she said, well, I've set up boards. It can't get in because of that. If it's not for your healing, it's not going to be able to come in. It was interesting that she could see it too, but that is not what kept me going back. What kept me going back was the fact that my pain levels were drastically decreased after that session. I could walk up, I had a second floor apartment. I could walk up those steps. I would have to go like one step. That's how I walked down the steps. Mm-hmm. And I could walk up them like a normal person. And that is what kept me going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the weird entity thing.
Well, and I'll just tell you, Tricia, I appreciate you sharing your story like so much, because like you mentioned earlier, like a lot of us end up in this space because we're sick or we're hurt.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it gets to a point where like we can't do whatever we're doing anymore and be okay. I mean, I had the same type of experience. I won't get into it in this podcast, but I had or at least not this episode. I had the exact same type of experience where I was in an immense amount of pain. And I understand how difficult it can be to share about that story. So I really appreciate your level of vulnerability and sharing that with us, because I think it's important for other people who are suffering to know that like they're not alone and it can get better. Not saying this is the way for sure. That's my disclaimer. Okay. But it's a possibility,
Yes.
And so, yeah. Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. That story gets even more interesting. So while I wasn't able to go back to work, and I just really didn't know what was going to happen with my career. And it was a real bummer because it was my second career. It's like, oh my God, I can't do it. What am I going to do? Am I going to have to create a new career again? I don't want to do that. Like but these things were all running through my mind. And I think that it's important to say that it wasn't, how do I talk to spirits? The things that were running through my mind were, how am I going to pay my bills if I can't work? How am I going to feed myself? And just what am I going to do with my life? Those were the things that were going through my mind.
You mean you weren't just like on a random, I need to do ayahuasca journey?
No.
I think what you're saying.
My gosh.
I think what you're saying is really important though too, is that oftentimes people who haven't been through a spiritual awakening / journey or whatever yet think it's like this super fun like adventure, and it's often not. So there's that. I think for some of us, we get swifter kicks from our spirit guides than others. I might be that person who gets kicked down the stairs when I need to hear something. And I totally lost where I was going with that. But anyways, that it's important that we realize that like, it's not, when we move into this space, it's because there's like a need there. It's not just like sitting around one day, eating bonbons, drinking champagne. My life's amazing. You know, it'd be cool.
Like, oh my God, let's go.
Like, oh my God, let's go do this. Like typically the people who end up like in the deep end of the solutio pool, as I call it, alchemical science, right? And as their entire being is dissolving around them, they're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, that's exactly,
it wasn't planned.
Like, I have lived through my entire being completely and utterly dissolved. Yeah. Like literally. That's what happened to me. And then what opened on the other side was also not subtle or very pleasurable. So I got into doing all this energy work to get pain relief. Mm-hmm. And then to keep my mind sane, I started drawing and painting. And my second Reiki share, we crossed over like a wayward spirit. I'm just thinking, what is going on? This is some crazy shit. Like, what the hell? Yeah. So we crossed over that wayward spirit. Yeah. And also I had a past life regression. And
those are all very big things.
Very big things. And so then I had to do, in that past life regression, I died a violent death, and I was having a lot of relationship issues, and the person that I was having relationship issues with was involved in that past life. And so this was all tied up into just me experiencing energy work for the first time. And I was also on a lot of painkillers and anti-inflammatories, and I was losing my life. I wasn't in a great mental space. So I thought I was just losing my mind. I thought it was going crazy. And then I started crying, and there were days when I just wouldn't stop crying. So this was all heading into my hip surgery. And then after I got it, when I had that big, after I had my hip surgery and 4.5 months into my recovery, when I had that big regression, the same things came back. I was demoralized. Really had to take myself out of a deep, deep depression. I just didn't really want to be alive. It was too painful.
Yeah, no. And I, like I said, I've had a similar journey, and I understand that. And just pain does something to you for sure. So, and I don't want to cut you off, but we're watching time.
Okay.
So because we don't have a lot left. So if we could fast forward to the part where you started moving into your practice. And then what I really want you to share with everyone is how you've taken all of this and have moved it forward into the work you do with others.
So I started drawing and painting to get myself out of that depression. I also thought that it would be great to do a big, ginormous art show while I was recovering. I don't even know why. That makes absolutely no sense, right? But it ended up being a huge show that had an impact on that community, my home community. So and also I was learning about intentional creativity. That's the drawing and painting that I was doing. I was also learning that it was having an impact on other people. I was getting certified in Reiki because the person who was my Reiki master that I would go to just said, okay, why don't I just comp you? You can draw and paint with my granddaughter. You need to do this. So it wasn't me doing any research. It was me finding someone it was a family friend, and she gave me my attunements.
Yeah. So your souls just found each other.
And then I ended up finding a whole new business in life because people started buying my paintings, which really surprised me. I was posting them online just to keep in touch with people.
Because they're gorgeous. They're gorgeous.
And that art show literally made me an artist overnight. And that was a whole new identity. And then it's taken me years to fully step into it. But then I got certified to teach intentional creativity because I could see that people wanted it. Like that was an element of service that I could offer people. And they were having, people have really made some huge life changes from that. I incorporate energy work into all aspects of the painting, and really my main goal in helping people is not to turn them into great artists. It's to let them know that they can use creativity as a skill to manifest their dreams. And my dreams were coming true in all these strange roundabout ways that if you subscribe to my newsletter, I've just for this podcast, I've attached an even longer, it's like a 30-minute video, but it tells more about how my dreams came true with me drawing and painting, like big dreams, like me getting a new home and just big dreams that everybody's looking for, right? In this roundabout way that I never would have expected. So if you subscribe to my newsletter, I've included the link to that in the subscription, so you can learn more about that.
And all those links, I have a bunch of links for you, everyone, for Tricia, and all those will be in the description of the video when it's posted. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, So
Tricia, if I was going to work with you today, like if I was like, man, Tricia's so cool, I'm not sure what I want, but I have some stuff I need to work through and I want to work with her. What are the different things that we would be able to do together?
Well, I have, if you want to align your energies to the moon, I have new and full moon rituals. I have full moon ecstatic dance rituals, which you've done.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so fun. Yeah.
And new moon rituals that are, I call them new moon crafting circles, where I incorporate art and creativity into you creating an intention for yourself. Okay. But it's in a unique way where I also do some guided meditation where you go in and you use the moon as a deity to help you connect to your soul and see what your soul's intention is for you. And you get to compare the two, because the one that you write down and the one that your soul gives you is very different, but it helps you start to decode the language of your soul, which is very different than your mental language. So those are two things. And if you want to align to the moon's energies, the new and full moon rituals are great. I have some painting classes coming up in February. Queen of Her Own Heart is a painting class that I'm doing. And I also have journal making and affirmation card workshops. And I have an affirmation card class on healing any heartbreak that has to do with love, like healing that love story. You can make an affirmation card deck based on your own love story and create your own affirmations for that story. And in that way is ginormous energy work. You're transforming and reclaiming those parts of you.
Sounds beautiful. So, yeah. And do you do one-on-one work with people?
I do one-on-one work. So, and I'm just now, and I'm also in the process of putting all this stuff online. I started in 2020. I have a coaching program where people paint a painting while they're going through coaching with me. And it's very much like life coaching. You don't always have to paint either. I've had a professional musician came and did a session with me where she just played her violin while I painted. So if there's because some people are creative professionals and they're just trying to find their voice again. And I've helped people do that and create whole other businesses with their own creativity. And that's been through some of the one-on-one work. And they've also just come to that doing my classes. So I do work one-on-one, but it's for a very specific purpose usually, which makes that's what makes it different than the classes. I'm focused on you and this core intention of what you want to bring into your life. And that's what we're painting for. And that's while we're painting, you're looking at everything that you have to let go of and everything that you need to face in order to make room for who you're becoming. And then also you get to curate that on a canvas, who you want to be, you're painting it. So then you can later embody all those aspects of yourself.
I mean, I've done some work with you personally and I've loved all of it. And every class that I've been to, I've really enjoyed. And your meditations are some of the best. I'm not gonna lie. I absolutely love them. And your yoga mats.
Yes, I have yoga. There are so many things.
They're so beautiful because it's her artwork. So if you guys like the painting that's behind her in her video,
Oh, yes.
Is one of them. And she put these gorgeous paintings on yoga mats. I ordered one myself, and they're gorgeous. They're just gorgeous. And there's so much more than a yoga mat. You just got to go to her website and check them out.
Yeah. Everything's on the web. Even all my offerings are on the website. I also do energy work with people. What I'm gonna offer people who watch this, you can get a discount on a 20-minute art card reading, where I can make you a card that's just for you, and it's kind of like getting a psychic reading.
Oh, you showed me those. Also beautiful.
I make a picture, a small picture that is the same size of a card as if you take any affirmation card classes with me. They're all the same size, so you can create your own deck of these cards.
So do they have to be in person with you to do that?
No, this you can also schedule via Zoom for this.
Perfect. And you do the local events, you do tea and tarot. Do you make those cards there?
Yeah, I'll make those cards there. So tea and tarot is Angie Butts has a Triple Flame Healing is a place in Columbia. It's a healing center, and I go there and I offer readings. I also do a lot of in-person stuff at the Lake of the Ozarks. I do full moon ecstatic dance rituals there, and I also go and I've done card readings there. And I plan to do this because it's a very great entry-level thing for people who've never had energy work, and they're used to this format of just someone giving them a reading. So I create it for people who are just curious. They're not super expensive, and people will get a discount if they book one online, or if you come and see me in person, just say, "Hey, I saw Adrian's podcast," and
awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I also do, I don't even know, Reiki and shamanic journey work I'm doing with people. My Reiki is not like a normal Reiki session either. I can do many other things.
I know there's no way an hour can possibly encapsulate it all. We tried.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. But I do want to have you back again to talk in more detail about specific things that you do because I just love what you do, Tricia. So there's that.
I love what you do too. I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing.
Oh, same.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So we have just a couple minutes. So if there was anything that you wanted to share with the people who are watching and will be listening, what would it be?
It would be that it's really important to get to know the language of your own soul. Your soul will speak to you in a language that's not like any others. And it's important that you get to know the language of your own soul, and always remember that the most vitally important conversations you will ever have in your life are the ones that you have with yourself.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tricia.
Be yourselves.
Exactly. I don't know how many times I need to remind clients, care for yourself,
Yes.
grace, patience. And then I'll also say how many times I have to remind myself.
Oh, yes. Right. We're yeah.
Be nice to yourself. Be kind to yourself.
I know.
Give yourself patience.
All the people that come to your table are just reminders of what you need to do for yourself. I feel for me anyway, like, no, okay. I need to take my own medicine on that.
Reason like 8,000 million trillion whatever of being grateful for clients, because there's so many times in a session I'll hear something and be like, did you hear that? That one was for you too. That was for you too, Adrian. Write that down for later. But yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, again, Tricia, thank you so much for joining me and everyone else. This will be up and posted on Spotify as a podcast tomorrow. And then also on my YouTube channel, same video with a little bit of zhuzhing, right? So the YouTube channel is Dr. Adrian Campbell. On Spotify, it's the Energetic Psyche. So it's for the podcast. And yeah, that's all I got. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this second episode of the Energetic Psyche. If you'd like to know more about Tricia Dietrich and her work in the world, you may look at her website, triciadietrich.com. You can also find her on Instagram and Facebook under Sacred Source Studios. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful week.